welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you 4 tips about how and when to modify vowels in your singing voice. So without further ado, let's get started. My first tip for you in considering how and when to modify your vowels when singing is to consider the style that you're singing. Everybody knows that classic Justin Timberlake meme that goes around May that says something like, "It's gotta be May." You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, I bet you do. So this may seem like a little bit silly, and it might seem appropriate for a lot of those 90s Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears songs, but oftentimes we don't want to over modify our vowel sounds when we're singing pop or rock music because it sounds a little strange and affected. However, in classical music, modification is just a part of life. So when we're singing with classical music, we want to open around the vowels to get more of that beautiful full sound that's characteristic of an operatic voice, like this. But with pop sounds, we tend to stick with the more narrow, more bright sounds that we would use in our typical speaking voice. So it seems a little bit more natural to our speaking voice. So a little bit more of a bright, narrow sound when we modify for pop music, and a little bit more of a rounded sound when we modify for classical music. We modify sooner in our range for classical music than we do for pop music. Pop music doesn't tend to have that modification until we reach the really high notes of our range or very, very low notes of our range. We usually just stick to how the words would sound when we were speaking. Tip number 2 on how to change your vowels when singing. It's really, really important that you understand the part of your range that you're singing in. With lower notes, generally we want to lean towards brighter vowel sounds such as E, A, and perhaps ah. These sounds will help us to project and carry our voice out. So with a lower range note, we might practice D, 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 D. That helps us to carry our voice forward so that other people can hear it. With our higher range voice notes, we need a little bit more space when we're modifying or changing vowels. So we may go back to something that's a little more open, like an O or an oo. It creates lots of nice resonating space inside my mouth. So I could shift to an to create that nice open space. Again, I have to be really confident with my style that I'm singing in. There was a little bit of a low modification for pop singing because it came out very classical. So again, I'd have to take into account the style of the song as well when I'm changing my vowels when I'm singing. So higher notes, a little bit more rounded, lower notes, a little bit more bright when we're modifying vowels. The other place that we need to be confident about where we're modifying is our passaggio. The passaggio is the area of the voice that transitions from our lower range into our higher range. And it's called passaggio because it's the Italian word for passageway between the two ranges. And a lot of people, this area of their voice feels pretty unstable. So here what I would do to have a little bit more control over the voice, especially when we're singing on some different vowel sounds, we want to modify those vowels, is to shape the vowel into something a little bit more narrow. Makes it feel like I have control and that vowel isn't wandering around. Tip number 3 about when to modify vowels: understanding your diphthongs. Now, a diphthong is a fancy word that simply means 2 vowel sounds in one word. So the word boy, for example, is a diphthong. It has an and an E sound. Boy, boy. Okay. Now, diphthongs have a primary vowel, which is the first vowel sound, and then a shadow vowel, E. the second vowel sound. We generally want to hold on the primary vowel sound when we're thinking about how we're modifying our vowels to make it appropriate for singing. So when do we change to the second vowel sound? Well, that depends again on the style of music. With classical music, we're probably going to hold most of the way through on our primary vowel sound and put the secondary vowel sound right before the consonant or the ending of the word. With pop music, when we modify and move to the second vowel sound, they're a little bit more even. So if we take the word boy again, boy for classical versus boy for pop. Very different sounds, much more blended and even between the first and second vowels for pop. But as a general rule of thumb, when modifying your vowels, you do not want to go to your second vowel sound, your shadow vowel, too soon. And you also don't want it to bleed into your primary vowel. So you do want to spend a little bit of time on your primary vowel before your second when you're learning how to modify your vowels for singing. All right, guys, I have one more tip coming your way, but before I give it to you, please make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, like this video, and comment below to get more information about how to improve your singing voice. I want to hear from you guys about what you want to hear with your videos. Please let me know below. My last tip for you, tip number 4, know your voice. Every voice is different, and some voices are naturally more bright than others. Some voices are a little bit more dark than others. However, there is kind of a range of what we consider desirable when we're modifying vowels. Again, taking into account the style of music that we are singing. So when we're modifying vowels for our voice and there's a sound maybe that's coming across too bright, we may want to blend a little bit of darker sound into our singing voice and think of darkening that vowel sound to something more like an eh if it's an E sound, or an ah, something that's a little bit closer to that to balance that brightness in the voice. If it's a darker voice that's really swallowed, we may want to blend a little bit of brightness into the sound, including a little bit of shading of E, of ah, of A, okay? To bring a bit more balance into the voice, and using that modification of the vowel, then we have a voice that's a little bit more close to that desirable range. So modification can really be a short-term fix to improve the balance in a singer's sound. Again, it's a short-term fix, which means that oftentimes when there's over brightness in a voice or over darkness, there's something that's out of whack in that voice. Whether it's a breathing issue or a tension issue or just an understanding of resonance issue. It needs to be addressed, but sometimes there are times in life where we need to put together a song quickly, and that might be for an audition, or because that singer is having surgery to fix an issue that's causing those problems in the voice, and up until we can deal with it, we may need to modify to get them some results so that they keep having that confidence with their singing. All right, guys, I hope that was helpful. Until then, follow your passion and keep hustling.